What happens when a Hollywood legend who rarely speaks about other stars finally breaks his silence? At 95 years old, Clint Eastwood has seen it all. He's lived through the golden age of westerns, survived the ups and downs of fame, and built a career that most people can only dream about. For decades, he's been known as the strong, silent type, both on screen and off. He doesn't gossip. He doesn't do drama. He lets his movies do the talking. But recently, something changed. After all these years, Clint Eastwood decided to open up about another Hollywood giant, someone who walked a similar path, but took a completely different route to get there. That person is Robert Redford. And what Eastwood had to say will surprise you. Before we dive into what Clint said about Redford, let's talk about who Clint Eastwood really is. Born on the last day of May in 1930 in San Francisco, Clint grew up during one of America's toughest times, the Great Depression. His family didn't have much money, and they moved around a lot, looking for work wherever they could find it. Eventually, they settled down in a small California town called Piedmont. Young Clint wasn't born into wealth or fame. He was just a regular kid trying to figure out life. As a young man, Clint was tall and lean with a quiet confidence that made people notice him. But Hollywood wasn't calling yet. Instead, he worked all kinds of jobs just to get by. He was a lifeguard at a pool, keeping an eye on swimmers during hot summer days. He fought forest fires, risking his life to save trees and homes. He even worked in a steel factory, doing hard labor that would break most people. These weren't glamorous jobs, but they shaped who he would become. They taught him how to be tough, how to stay calm under pressure, and how to keep going even when things got hard. Acting wasn't something Clint dreamed about as a kid. It kind of found him. His natural presence and the way he carried himself caught people's attention. He started getting small acting roles in the 1950s, but success didn't come overnight. He had to be patient. He had to keep trying even when doors were closing in his face. That's the thing about Clint Eastwood. He never gave up. His big break came when he got cast in a TV show called Rawhide. It was a Western series that ran from 1959 to 1965. Clint played a character named Rowdy Yates, and viewers loved his tough guy style and the way he could say so much without saying anything at all. But even though Rawhide was successful, it was just the beginning. The real magic happened when Clint traveled all the way to Italy to work with a director named Sergio Leone. In Italy, Clint made 3 movies that changed everything. They were called the Dollars Trilogy, and they included A Fistful of Dollars, For a Few Dollars More, and The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. These weren't your typical American westerns. They were grittier, more intense, and more realistic. Clint played a mysterious character known simply as the Man with No Name. He wore a poncho, smoked cigars, and barely spoke. But when he did speak, people listened. These movies turned Clint into an international superstar and changed what westerns could be. By the time the 1970s rolled around, Clint was on fire. He took on the role of Dirty Harry Callahan, a tough cop in San Francisco who didn't play by the rules. The movie Dirty Harry came out in 1971, and it was a huge hit. People loved the character because he wasn't perfect. He got angry. He bent the rules. But he always tried to do what was right. One of the most famous lines from that movie, "Do you feel lucky, punk?" became something everyone quoted. Even today, people still say it. But Clint didn't want to just act. He wanted to create. He started his own production company called Malpaso Productions, which gave him control over the movies he made. Then he stepped behind the camera and started directing. His first movie as a director was called Play Misty for Me, and it proved he had serious talent. Over the years, he directed some of the most respected films in Hollywood. Unforgiven, which came out in 1992, won him Oscars for Best Picture and Best Director. Million Dollar Baby did the same thing in 2004. He also made powerful movies like Mystic River, American Sniper, and Sully. Clint proved he wasn't just a movie star. He was an artist. Now, let's talk about Clint's personal life, because it's complicated. Back in 1953, when Clint was still unknown, he married a woman named Maggie Johnson. She was beautiful and working as a model. They stayed married for over 30 years, and they had 2 kids together. Kyle, their son, became a jazz musician, and Allison, their daughter, went into acting and directing. But the marriage wasn't easy. Clint had affairs, and everyone in Hollywood knew about it. Eventually, Clint and Maggie separated, and their divorce was finalized in 1984. Reports say Maggie received around $25 to $30 million in the settlement. While he was still married to Maggie, Clint started a relationship with a dancer and actress named Roxanne Tunis. Their romance lasted from 1959 to around 1973. During that time, they had a daughter named Kimber, born in 1964. For years, Clint didn't publicly talk about Kimber. He kept that part of his life private. In 1975, Clint started living with actress Sandra Locke. They were together for almost 14 years and made several movies together. On the surface, they seemed happy, but behind the scenes, things were messy. Clint was unfaithful and had children with other women during their relationship. When they broke up in 1989, it got ugly. There were lawsuits and public fights. It was one of the most talked about breakups in Hollywood. One of the women Clint had a secret relationship with was a flight attendant named Jocelyn Reeves. They kept things very quiet, but they had 2 children together. Scott, born in 1986, became an actor just like his dad. Catherine, born in 1988, went into screenwriting. For years, Clint didn't publicly acknowledge these kids, which added more complexity to his already complicated family life. After Sandra, Clint dated actress Frances Fisher. She was talented and known for her strong personality. They were together for several years and had a daughter named Francesca in 1993. Francesca grew up in the spotlight and later became an actress and model. Clint's relationship with Frances was considered one of his more stable ones, even though it eventually ended too. So why are we talking about all this? Because it shows that Clint Eastwood is human. He's made mistakes. He's hurt people. But he's also created incredible art and touched millions of lives through his movies. At 95, he's lived long enough to look back and think about everything he's done, both good and bad. And that brings us to Robert Redford. Like Clint, Robert Redford is a Hollywood legend. He's been in countless classic films, and he's also directed amazing movies. But here's the interesting thing. Even though both men were huge stars who defined their generation, they never actually made a movie together. Their careers ran side by side, but they rarely crossed paths. For decades, Clint stayed quiet about Robert. He didn't talk about him in interviews. He didn't comment on his work. Until now. Recently, at 95 years old, Clint finally decided to share his thoughts about Robert Redford. And when someone like Clint Eastwood, who almost never talks about other actors, decides to speak up, people listen. What he said was simple but powerful. He admitted that he always respected Robert, even though they weren't close friends or part of the same Hollywood circles. Clint said that Robert had his own unique style and presence that nobody could copy. Coming from Clint, who doesn't hand out compliments easily, this meant everything. Clint and Robert represented 2 different types of movie heroes. Clint was the tough, silent cowboy who could win a fight with just a look. He didn't need to say much because his actions spoke louder than words. Robert, on the other hand, was charming and smooth. He had golden hair and a smile that made audiences fall in love with him. But he also showed emotion and vulnerability in ways that Clint's characters rarely did. Together, they showed different sides of what it meant to be a man in American movies. Clint acknowledged this difference. He said Robert wasn't like him, and that was exactly the point. Robert did what he did better than anyone else. You couldn't mistake him for anybody else. That's high praise coming from someone like Clint, who built his entire career on being unique and unmistakable himself. Fans have always wondered what it would have been like if Clint and Robert had made a movie together. Can you imagine? The stoic gunslinger and the charming smooth talker sharing the screen? It could have been amazing, but it never happened. When asked about this, Clint was honest. He said the timing never worked out. Both of them had their own projects and their own visions. Neither wanted to compromise what they were creating. But Clint didn't sound regretful. Instead, he seemed at peace with it. He said they didn't need to make a movie together to recognize what each other stood for. They were both doing their own thing, and that was enough. Even though they never collaborated, their careers followed similar paths. Both eventually became directors, and both proved they were just as talented behind the camera as they were in front of it. Clint became known for making emotionally raw movies that hit you right in the heart. Robert, meanwhile, created something even bigger. He founded the Sundance Film Festival, which became a launching pad for independent filmmakers who might never have gotten a chance otherwise. Clint had nothing but admiration for this. He said what Robert did with Sundance was remarkable and took real vision and guts. He said Robert created a legacy that would outlive both of them. What makes Clint's words so meaningful is that they come from a place of wisdom and perspective. At 95, he's not competing with anyone anymore. He's not trying to prove anything. He's simply reflecting on a long journey and acknowledging the people who walked similar roads. He said that when you reach his age, you start thinking about the people who were there with you, fighting the same battles and chasing the same dreams. Robert Redford was one of those people, and according to Clint, Robert carried himself with grace, which isn't easy to do in Hollywood. Most people lose themselves in the fame and the pressure, but Robert kept his dignity, and Clint respected that deeply. This moment of reflection shows a side of Clint Eastwood that fans don't always get to see. Yes, he's strong. Yes, he's tough. But he's also thoughtful and grateful. He appreciates the artistry of others, even if they took completely different paths. His comments about Robert aren't flashy or over the top. They're measured and sincere. That's pure Clint. He doesn't waste words, but when he speaks, every word counts. In Hollywood, egos clash all the time. Actors compete. Directors fight for recognition. Rivalries make headlines. But Clint and Robert showed that it doesn't have to be that way. Two legends can exist at the same time, each creating their own magic, without tearing each other down. Clint wrapped up his thoughts by saying they didn't need to compete. They both found their way, and he was glad Robert was out there doing what he did. The movies are better because of it. That's the lesson here. Success doesn't have to come at someone else's expense. You can respect and admire others while still building your own legacy. Clint Eastwood and Robert Redford proved that. They both made their mark on cinema in unforgettable ways. And now, at 95, Clint is taking the time to honor that shared journey. So what does this all mean for us? It's a reminder that life is long, and if you're lucky enough to live as long as Clint has, you get the chance to look back and appreciate the people who made the journey interesting. You get to see how everyone played their part in creating something bigger than themselves. And maybe, just maybe, you find the grace to say thank you. If this story touched you, do me a favor. Hit that like button right now. Share this video with someone who loves classic movies or needs to hear a story about respect and dignity. And don't forget to subscribe to this channel, because we've got more incredible stories like this coming your way. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.